Things you need to make this mini palette with air dry clay. So of course you need the air dry clay pack, which I have ordered from Amazon, some clay tools like a ruler and some cutters. These are a few drops of oil, any oil will do, and that's water, scissors, a pointy tool like a stick, and a cutter, paper cutter, and a napkin of course to wipe your hands when required. So let's start with opening our air dry clay pack. It is a pre-made clay which is like wet clay, and as soon as it comes in contact with the air, it starts hardening slowly. So we have a base over here which is a plastic bag, actually a large one. You can have a plastic board or a bag or something so that the clay doesn't stick to your base, table or floor or wherever you are working, and it creates lesser mess, and it's easy to clean up. If you have reached till here, then please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button so that we get encouragement to make more such interesting and educational videos for you. So we just chopped off the outer cover, and the clay inside is also covered with a thin film of plastic which you may miss out. So I'll just show you how to open this. I'm just picking it up with my nail and snipping it off. Can you kind of see it? Let's peel off the plastic. I think now you can see it properly. And let's then cut off a chunk of clay for us to work with. So in this video we are going to show you how to make a palette, but you can use this clay to make anything that you want. In one of the videos that we are going to upload next, we are going to be showing you that we are using this palette to paint something, and in yet another video which is coming soon, we are going to show you how to make a trinket tray, like a heart-shaped tray with air dry clay. So don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you find it useful. So when you are going to wrap this clay up, you're going to make sure that you are going to cover up the wet clay with the plastic film and close the packet also, and make sure no air goes into the packet. And this chunk of clay in our hand, we are going to make it a little soft by pressing it all and then making into a smooth fine ball. But this step is necessary, only then will it becomes a little moldable, otherwise it just feels a little hard. And before we began, we dipped our fingers in oil and applied all over the hand so this clay doesn't stick too much. And here I'm removing my rings or any jewelry that you're wearing on your hand or maybe even your wrist to have a little more comfortable experience. And I'm going to make a super smooth ball and flatten it like this. And I'm going to use this roller that I found from my son's. I picked up this roller from my son's Play-Doh set. And even those tools you see, the red and pink ones on the left, are from his Play-Doh set. So this is going to be like a rectangular one, so I'm going to make a little rectangulish rectangle type shape for this. And I'm going to smoothen it with this roller also that I found in my son's Play-Doh kit. You can skip this step of smoothing it. And I've not made it very thin, because we don't want it to break. And now I'm going to shape and draw a shape that I want. So to make a rectangle which is exact and neat, I cut it out from a piece of colored paper, and then I'm going to trace it so I get a neat outline of the rectangle that I want. So here I'm not poking the point of this stick right till the bottom, it's just a superficial line, and after that I'm going to use the cutter to cut it right through. The cutter being having a thin fine blade makes the process much more neater than the stick. If you do it with the stick, it may not happen that neat. So we got our base rectangle ready. Now let's move ahead. Again, I'm putting some oil on my fingers and I'm gonna roll it like a snake, like we tell children. I'm gonna now make the rim of the plate, like palette. So I'll make an even roll with this. And let's place it on all the 4 sides now. So I'm placing it over my rectangle and not beside the rectangle that I've made. Over my rectangle like this. Even if you do not get a continuous border on 4 sides, that's fine. You can make it long enough for one side also, it's okay, or 2 sides, you can decide. But we can join the remaining, wherever there are breaks, we can join it later. I'll show you how. Okay, so first we are just placing it and cutting off the excess. I'm gonna make some cuts at the end. Cuts are, that is, lines with cutter, so that they can stick to each other well. And I'm just placing it correctly, trying to blend in the clay wherever the breaks were there with each other seamlessly. And now I'm going to take some water, apply it at some places to make it look smooth, and this step is necessary. And now I'm going to blend the sides of the rim of the clay of the palette with the base by using this side of the tool, which is a circular one. You can use the other side also, and I'm gonna poke it like slightly into the clay and blend it with the bottom base. You want to do it all at one go before the clay dries. So your base rectangle, when you make it, you want to do the rim and the whole palette at the same time, so that you can blend in with each other, otherwise it's not going to stick that well. So this is a very tedious process, but it's one of the most important ones. The clay needs to blend through and it should look like one piece and not 2 things stuck to each other. Otherwise it's all going to fall off when it dries. And then I take a little water in my finger, dab it on the cloth, make my finger moist and short, and apply water everywhere to smoothen it out. So those strokes that you see, they go away and it looks like a finished piece. We repeat this process on all the 4 sides, inwards as well as outwards. And then I'm trying to kind of lightly pinch the edges with water to make it smooth, and so the rounded cylinder roll that we made, that becomes like a pointy thing eventually on the sides, because I rub my thumb and index finger with water on both the sides. Now I'm making the roll to add inside the palette to make sections, and now that I've used the palette once, I think I have made the sections a little lower than they should be, so I think I would suggest you to make these sections a little more higher in the middle, so that it can actually contain paint inside, even if it's a little liquefied and doesn't run over to the other section. The same way we make the rolls and place them, put some cuts at the end to stick them, use water to make them smooth, use that tool to blend in with the base on all the sides. So once we're done, we allow this palette to dry overnight, and the next day we take some sandpaper and smoothen the sides. So we smoothen the outer pointy areas, even the flat areas outside, behind, front and back, everywhere. This is the best process of this whole craft. So to smoothen is inside, I'm going to cut a piece of sandpaper and use it to smoothen the areas where the big sandpaper did not reach. Now I'm going to paint it next using white acrylic color with a flat brush. And I want to use a little lighter yellow shade to give it a little color, but I don't want too bright, because eventually I'm going to remove paint in this palette and use, so I want a little clarity onto the shades of the paint that I want to remove. That's why my base I've made it very pale yellow, and the sides I'm going to make that little pop by using this bright lemon yellow. You can choose whatever colors you like for this, and if you make something, do write down in the comments. We would love to see. You can follow my page on Instagram. It's called myjourney.drishita. That is my personal page. After you finish painting on one side, please allow your object to dry for at least 20 minutes. and then only turn over and paint the rear side. I'm going to use Fevicryl Mod Podge over here, and I'll just remove a few drops in a bowl. It is a transparent glossy coating that I'm going to give on top. Instead of this, you can also use varnish, whether it is spray varnish or varnish which you can apply with brush, so that it gets an extra covering. And here I see that it is kind of blending with the Mod Podge, so just make sure that you paint on the colors separately, otherwise Mod Podge will make your acrylic colors to blend with each other, which we don't want. So you're going to be careful when you paint this on top. And though this is an object which you can use in real daily life, make sure that it doesn't fall down, otherwise it may break and crack. So you need to be careful of that. Allow it to dry and then turn it around and do it on the other side. And give it a good 20-30 minutes time to dry. Thank you for watching our video. I hope you learned a new tutorial today, and make sure you share this video with your friends and family who are interested in air dry clay crafts. See you again.